Hi, I'm Emily Gajewski. I'm a human givens therapist in private practice, and I work for the college, the Human Givens College, as a tutor and supervisor. And I wanted to just spend a couple of minutes today telling you about my new workshop that I'm running online for the college, which is working towards preventing burnout in the caring professions in people like us. The beginning part of my career was in the NHS. I worked as an occupational therapist, predominantly in mental health. But in the early stages, particularly as a student, I worked in physical health in general hospitals. And I remember quite early on in my placements being quite taken aback by how much reliance staff had on caffeine and sugar, in the form of biscuits and chocolates that patients' families brought in, and going from one sort of tea break and coffee break to another, sort of fueling themselves on caffeine and sugar. And I very much got into that myself. And what I noticed was that lots of staff's jobs, particularly the nurses, had really unmanageable amounts of stress, and that this was the way that they coped and got through it. And then when I went into mental health, I saw that a lot more with alcohol, smoking, and drugs. And as I've moved into doing the research for this workshop, looking into burnout, I've realised there's a huge correlation with addictions, and it can be a feature of burnout that you're at times of overwhelm and exhaustion and unmanageable stress at work, you turn to escapes, ways of just feeling better in the moment. What I also have noticed with supervisees over the years is that when they're overwhelmed, there can be a sense of detachment with their clients or their patients. So certainly in mental health, there's quite a lot of dark humour where people will make jokes maybe about somebody being assaulted or a suicide attempt or something that really isn't funny. But that sense of detachment is, of course, a coping strategy when you're feeling overwhelmed by someone else's emotions. And again, this is a key feature of burnout, I've now learned from doing the research. So in the workshop, I share with you all the kind of latest findings and research on burnout. And particularly, we drill down into what are the habits, what safeguards are there that we can put in place in our working life so that we can remain engaged with our clients. We can remain in a place where we enjoy our work, where it's fulfilling, where we don't feel overwhelmed. And we look at strategies in our day-to-day life, but also actually within a session and before and after a session. So practical techniques that we can use to safeguard ourselves against burnout, moving on that journey towards burnout. And what's very much supported in the research and the literature around burnout is that putting these kind of self-caring, self-preserving strategies into our life and into our work is definitely not a luxury, which I think perhaps is how things have been perceived previously. What we know really is that actually we could say it's our duty of care, because if we're burnt out, if we don't have spare capacity, if we don't have proper resources to utilize all the skills that we're taught in our work, we're giving our clients a diminished service. And I think that is a key message in the workshop, that it's around shifting our thinking, that actually looking after ourselves is our duty of care. It's part of our professional responsibility to our clients. What we also do on the workshop is have plenty of time to actually relax and step back from our busy work schedule and have a bit of time to reflect on how we're working and look at how we can kind of tweak things so that we can weave in some of these strategies. So rather than it feeling like you're going to finish the day with a huge to-do list, which is obviously going to add to your stress, which is not what we want, it's just about making realistic little tweaks in your working day, in your practice, so that you can feel really present with your clients or your patients, because that is shown to really not only enhance your well-being, your sense of satisfaction, but actually the client's experience, the effectiveness of the session, and the client's success in achieving their goals. So I hope that sounds interesting and hopefully useful, and I hope to see you on the next course.